We'll wait for a moment to make fun of stugotz. He's trying to make his way through flooding. I don't know if you guys saw this. Edgewater has some pretty unprecedented flooding. 11 new condos going up because the properties are worth so much around here.
I couldn't tell what was the top of buildings and what was water in that video that Billy Corbin put out. It was like the water looked like concrete, and so it was just one big gray blob at night. It was horrifying.
You know Billy somewhat, right, Dan?
Yes.
Does he smile? Like, the things... What makes him, like, happy besides corruption?
Being proven right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's his ultimate happiness.
Like, a night out with Billy, like, you get the talk at the, like, appetizers about, like, local city commissions out of the way, and then, like, where do we go?
I don't know how it is that you guys end up in a place where a bunch of garages are flooded all over South Florida, and the place you end up is with Billy Corbin. Like, it's barely rain. It's not real flooding situational weather.
It's quite the plot of land he's carved out for himself, Billy Corbin. When there's climate change locally, I'm like, man, Billy is happy today.
I don't think that...
Oh, yeah, he's going to hashtag the shit out of this one.
You guys receive all of that information differently than I do. I'm more alarmed that places I've never seen flood in South Florida are totally underwater as we continue to build expensive places that are already ill-equipped to handle minor rain.
I mean, I'm not surprised by it anymore. It's just the cost of living in paradise at this point is that at any moment it could be taken away from us.
Billy, are you made happy? Is this Billy made happy when Justin Herbert fails?
I mean, I don't root for people's failures, but it's funny.
I think the real win yesterday, because you're kind of comparing it to Dolphins. Like, Dolphins fans get to watch Herbert lose, and that's fun for them. The real victory is watching that Jets-Patriots game as a Dolphins fan. I got to watch that game yesterday with a different perspective. Usually, I'm one of those teams, and it's just like, this is football. This is what it's supposed to be. Now that I see what football is supposed to be, it was fun watching that. It was actually terrible watching that game, but also fun because I was like, oh, wait, my Dolphins are better than both these teams. Huh.
You have an offense. Neither one of those teams do. I believe the number is Tua has 18 touchdowns and Zach and Mac have 8. And the Jets yesterday had what can be described as the worst offensive performance you'll ever see. At one point, I don't know if they ended the game this way, they were averaging 3 inches a play.
And yet still more entertaining to watch than the Patriots. Yeah. I think the Patriots are my least favorite watch because even with the Broncos, I can laugh at their misery. And
Carolina Panthers?
I can also laugh at the situation that Baker, as a former Baker fan, to see how far he's fallen off. It's kind of funny to me. And also when they have PJ Walker in there, it's, X couldn't give it to you.
Wait, why aren't you a Baker fan anymore?
I'm not. I still want Baker to do well, but I do find it funny how wrong I was about him at this point. So, yeah, I do find it funny how bad that they are. For me, there is just, with Mac Jones at quarterback, there is nothing at all interesting about the New England Patriots offense. Nothing. It helps when Damian Harris is a little healthy. I'm a fan of his running style, but just my least favorite watch in the NFL.
Broncos are pretty bad, too. Nick Wright had the stat they'd be 9-1 if they scored 18 points in regulation per game. But the Carolina Panthers are my least favorite watch. I had the very strong feeling yesterday, I'm not kidding, that the Carolina Panthers, when they're on offense and they get a defensive holding call, they celebrate like it's a winning streak. They get 5 yards of defensive holding.
It's one of their more impactful plays. It's a huge play. A holding on defense in a game of real estate acquisition is massive for the Carolina Panthers. Carolina is what happens when you let me pick all the quarterbacks. Because you got an XFL dude, you got the Eric King on the practice squad, you got Baker Mayfield and all this hope in there. Don't let me pick your quarterbacks.
The Jets, if we played that game 1,000 times, that's the first punt return for a touchdown this season there's been in the NFL.
I'm so
correct?
furious at that. I am so furious at that as someone that had Jets plus 3.5.
That was the only way. That was the only way the Pats were covering.
That hook looked like 1,000,000 points.
It did. It was the rare 8-point hook.
That was such an insurmountable mountain
I was
to
like,
climb.
I was asking my friend, I was like, how's it possible they cover? Because I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's physically possible.
It was a tie game and a 2-score hook. It was crazy. How how locked in that 3.5 was.
I spent about a quarter and a half thinking it was 2.5, now 3.5. And then when I discovered there was, oh no, there is no way the Pats are going to cover this spread.
I had the Pats minus 3.5, and the entire game I kept saying this phrase: "Give me one drive, Mac Jones." One drive.
You were waiting for a drive, not a defensive touchdown.
I just needed it with the whole fourth quarter to go. I'm like, every time I turn to this game, it's 4th and 20. Jets are punting, so I'm like, you keep getting the ball back.
And I felt like the Pats were at the 38-yard line the entire second half.
Stevenson would have like a nice 20-yard play, and then they'd punt. It was just like, it was so annoying, that game.
Mac is not better than Zappy. Belichick does not trust Mac Jones at all. At all. If it's third and manageable, they're still chucking it just 3 yards.
I think it was 2nd and 7 from like their own 30, and they just ran it twice. They're like, nope, can't throw it.
You say that he doesn't trust Mac Jones, and you'd be right, but what he trusts most is, I'm going to keep undressing Zach Wilson. I trust me here. I trust that I'm not going to let my quarterback get in the way of the fact that Zach Wilson has had 7 second-half drives for negative 12 yards passing, and no drive got past the Jets' own 35-yard line. None of the 7 drives. What Belichick was trusting there is just, I will beat Zach Wilson. My quarterback will not lose this game for me.
But you could do that with a quarterback that can move the ball a little bit, or at least show some faith in the quarterback. He has regressed. He has not been their best quarterback. I don't understand. And speaking of not being the best quarterback, I think Zach Wilson's maybe the 3rd best quarterback the New York Jets have at their disposal. Yet they're still going to trot him out there because they have to find out about this guy. When I think the book is written,
Flacco wins that game.
Flacco wins that game. Mike White wins that game. I don't understand how anybody can be worse. And I know he didn't really have that many turnovers. He tried. They dropped some. He's really bad. He's really bad, and it's a damn shame because stugotz and his New York Jets, they have a Super Bowl caliber defense. They're dominant. They're excellent.
The Patriots have a Super Bowl caliber defense as well. I think Bill Belichick has sort of burnished his ability to coach defense this year, his ability to manufacture wins as a coach. But my God, has he failed Mac Jones and failed his own offense by putting Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in charge of it, by completely stunting Mac Jones's development, because you would not have predicted that this is how this season would turn out for Mac Jones and the Patriots if you look at last year's evidence. There was at least some shreds of ability and talent and moving the ball down the field. They have completely regressed. I think the way that Bill Belichick has handled this offense, if not for obviously his incredible resume, he'd be drawing huge amounts of criticism for how they've bungled this.
And from the Dolphin fan perspective, you actually feel even better about your team during a bye week because of what happened in the AFC East, because the Chiefs look catchable, although I would say, word of warning, them actually realizing that they can run the ball and take what the defense affords them, that usually is a good recipe for their success. You had the weird situation where Tuanon's rooting for Justin Herbert, and the second he throws that interception at the end, every single belief of theirs is confirmed.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, well, not for the Sandings, because you're going to want to have home field. That bye is going to be pretty big, and it's actually a possibility for the Miami Dolphins. If they don't win their division, and it's a little scary that Buffalo in that second half seemed to kind of turn it on a little bit and look a little bit more like the Buffalo we were used to seeing. For that offense to travel on the road potentially 3 times in the AFC playoffs, you're going to have your concerns. But if you get that bye in the home games, woo.
I still believe in Buffalo, even though they have the Achilles heel of turning the ball over. Their point differential is amazing. Like, you look at the Vikings, they have now been outscored this season. The Vikings have...
That was my first thought at seeing that tonking that the Cowboys gave them is... They already had a very suspicious point differential, and now it's going to be one of the weirder ones of all time.
Buffalo's is amazing, and the Chiefs, you say they look catchable. I mean, how do you stop Travis Kelce? Everybody knows that that's the guy you got to stop.
And they have the guy to stop him in James, but they lost Kadarius Toney in that. Hardman's on the IR. It doesn't matter for them. Juju Smith-Schuster was out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire picked up a knee injury in that game. And still, at the end of that game, when Justin Herbert gets that touchdown pass, you see the time left on the field, on the clock, and you realize that Patrick Mahomes is going to march it right down the field. There's just no stopping him. He is amazing.
Did Hardman's television go out at the most inopportune time? Was he legitimately asking, did we win the game because his TV short-circuited at the wrong time?
Well, there was an earlier tweet saying he threw his remote at the TV, and that's what broke it. So it was kind of his fault.
Self-inflicted,
Yeah,
man-made situation?
Yeah.
The Jets, you mentioned Zach Wilson. How about his attitude after the game where he's asked by the press, do you feel like you let your defense down? No. And then some of the reporting in the locker room afterward is that Jets are peeved that he's swaggering around the locker room as if it's not his fault.
You know, for all of his struggles, at least Zach Wilson doesn't have one of those faces. To throw that performance out there and to not have any accountability. There were reports from beat writers covering the team that he was walking around the locker room acting like he wasn't the problem. I'm not sure how you walk like that except for when you have that face. And Jeremy Taché had one of the keenest observations I've ever heard in that Zach Wilson looks like Taylor Swift is eventually going to write an album about him. He's got that look to him, and a look that does not mean he's going to be a good quarterback.
That's interesting sourcing and reporting. When Zach Wilson walks around a locker room, how do you do the body language interpretations that allow you to arrive at the point that he's walking around as if it's not his fault? Or is he just walking the way Zach Wilson walks?
It's his face. It's just his face. He's walking with a face, and therefore he is walking that way.
How did you feel about Miami football being about the only thing as incompetent at offense as Zach Wilson, where they're playing against Clemson, and it's the worst offensive game the Hurricanes have had since 1965?
I feel terrible, and I feel like as little as I know about the game of football, I swear to God, if I'm in the headsets and I'm just telling the quarterback, draw a play in the sand, they're going to get more than 8 yards of offense in the first half. Certainly, I can get you more than 98 yards. Backsliding on the offense, obviously not what you thought you'd have. There are players that have already entered the portal. The quarterback, I don't think you can evaluate Ja'Carri Brown. He's not supposed to be out there. He's a development project. He's a tremendous athlete, and he actually, from having watched him in practice, now look at me, Louie, he puts in the work. He's one of the hardest working guys on the team. It's just, you can't evaluate anybody in this offense. The offense is terrible. The offensive coordinator has really struggled to actually connect to the players that are still there. It was awful. What was encouraging, though, was that defense continued to fight. I thought the defense was excellent, and I know a lot of people are having a go at the defensive coordinator. This offense has not helped this defense the entire season.
I don't think there's anything promising about what it is that happened to them against Clemson. I don't think
you don't think that D-line? They're all young guys.
I'm tired of hearing things like Mallory saying what a tribute to the culture it is that they didn't quit. I mean, I can't tell the difference between them quitting and being terrible.
Well, I do think previous Miami teams would quit, and it's funny that Mallory says that. He's a holdover from that previous culture. Miami is forcing this culture change. And I think Mario is being even tougher here in year one as the season has gone on because he's really trying to weed these guys out.
But what about this quote from him where he's talking about, you've been talking about parents being upset. A parent is welcome to pick up their son if they're not happy with playing time. It feels like something out of Little League. It feels like something out of high school to even have a college coach quoted that way.
I think you can win with players that had the type of mentality that Manny Diaz recruited, which was just, his recruiting approach was very hands-off, and he recruited a certain type of skill level, basically a roster designed to win you 7 games. And I know I sound like I'm blaming the kids. It's unfortunate. You have a head coach that can't connect to this type of mentality. And he's having that quote right there. It's something that's very true. A lot of parents have been complaining about playing time for kids that are actually no longer here. You have a stark difference from the old school, the old regime, and some of those players and their mentality, and this new one. You have one of the players actively recruiting against the University of Miami. I'm not going to put his business out there. There's a wide receiver that's just straight up telling recruits, don't come here. One of the parents from one of the kids over there, I've alluded to, they're players that faked injuries. You can already tell who's not here anymore. As more and more players announce that they're entering the portal, it's going to be sweeping change next year. Mario Cristobal, for better or worse, and we'll see if it works out, is going to have this roster full of people with the same type of mindset. And right now, what's available to him is a mindset from Manny Diaz's teams. That's oil and water. It's not going to work.
You guys were making fun of the Jets. We were making fun of the Jets before stugotz got in here. And I want to ask the question again on if you had to bet it. And I'm telling you, we're going to play the next 1,000 punts at the end of that game. And you have to be right with your bet. One is being returned for a touchdown. Are you betting yes or no in that situation?
And 1,000 punts.
Yeah. 1,000 punts.
1,000 punts.
I'm making it the situation.
One of them's going back to the house.
Okay, but there hasn't been a punt return for. I don't know how many punts there have been in the NFL this season, but there hasn't been a punt return for a touchdown.
I have no idea either. I'm telling you, the best chance for any of those teams to score a touchdown yesterday was on special teams via a punt return.
This is what I'm telling you about my fictional scenario. You have to play it not to score a touchdown as the receiving team. You have to play it as if you can't lateral it or anything. Your only choice is to get a punt return touchdown. And I don't think I bet. Where do I have to put the number to get you to bet zero? 500? 200?
Yeah, I'd have
100?
Something like that.
You
like 200.
You have to give me plus 3,000 to lay that.
Yeah.
It's going to happen inside of 100 attempts. I know that the NFL has
Maybe,
been,
Mike.
I know that the NFL has kind of the punt returns aren't nearly as electric. We saw a kickoff return. Congratulations, Cordell Patterson, for becoming the all-time leader in kick returns.
That's nuts.
It's a lost art. It's a shame, but it is actually keeping the players safer. If you look at the statistics, a lot of the concussions would come from special teams, an abnormal amount because of how everyone is just hard charging and going all balls out for that. So their player safety measurements that they've taken has really kind of neutered what was one of the more exciting parts of football in the 90s.
Are you not stunned that Cordell Patterson has more kickoffs returned for touchdowns, 9, than anyone in the history of the sport?
Shocked.
I'm not, because he's played for such a long time. Cordell Patterson was in standard def fantasy commercials. He's
Really?
Yeah, when he was in Minnesota to start his career, he's one of these kind of X Factor Dante Hall types. Well, you could just plug and play anywhere.
That's why I presume he was like when Scott Hansen said, "Oh, the record breaker. Oh, it's Devin Hester. It's Dante Hall." Like there are, and when he said Josh Cribbs was the previous record holder, I was like, really? And it sort of reminded me that Devin Hester was more of a punt-based returner than he was a kickoff returner. But either way, I just sort of assumed that someone from the 2000s had set that record because it was way more common back then.
I'm with you. I had no idea Patterson was in that conversation.
Oh, I did.
I had no idea he was even close.
No, I mean, he's a running back one, and he's been returning kicks for them because of how important that record is to him.
Oh, but that's
the only reason.
He did it all with the Vikings, correct? It's almost all of it is with the Vikings.
I think he took one back with the Patriots. He was a good player for New England, and that's when he started transitioning, I think 7 years into his career, to a full-time running back.
Stugotz, how did you feel?
Awful.
The whole day watching football, to go from possibly being in first place to playing that game the way the Jets want to play that game.
Well, the way the Jets want to play that game defensively, not offensively. I mean, they played a near perfect game on defense. The defense is young. The defense is fast. The defense is really talented. The quarterback has been a major disappointment. You asked me how I felt, and it's just one of those games, Dan, where because of the way it ended and because I had the Jets plus 3.5 on top of everything. Okay, so that's a bad beat, like a really bad beat. I just sat there and I stared. You remember a couple of weeks ago I talked about that look that Thomas Hill gave when Christian Laettner hit the shot against Kentucky and he was sitting there in shock? That's how I stared at my television for about 45 minutes. And then I snapped out of it because I had things to do. Bets to place. Tried to squeeze a hole or two in when it stopped raining for 35 minutes. And then I got back to normal, and I started feeling good again because I have a good young football team. And because 10 games into this season, we are 6-4. And I promised myself I would not let anything get in the way of my good Jet season, my unexpected Jet season. We have everything right in front of us. We play the Dolphins. We play the Bills. We're done playing the Patriots, thank God. But we play those teams, and we still have a chance to win our division. I don't know if I have a quarterback. I don't care if I have a quarterback. We have a chance this season to win the division. That's it.
You don't have a quarterback.
I don't
And
know
you
if
don't
I
have a
one.
chance to win the division.
Yes, we do.
You don't.
No, we're a game out. Yes, we beat Buffalo. We beat the Dolphins. We play them again, and we have a chance. Okay? We have a chance. Don't say we don't have a chance. We have a chance.
No, you don't have a quarterback.
I don't know. I know any other quarterback in the NFL probably wins that game yesterday.
wait a
Oh,
minute.
And I'm talking about backups.
That's a problem.
Give me Joe Flacco in street clothes. Give me anybody wins that game yesterday. Anybody.
How many holes of golf? Me and Chris were talking. How many holes of golf do you think you play a year?
I don't know. It's a good question. You think I'd be better.
That's kind of what we were talking about.
Yeah.
You're playing almost every day.
Right. I live on a golf course. One in Rome.
Did the lack of accountability really bother you too? Because if you're going to put up that quarterback performance, you got to just win over the locker room by saying, unacceptable. It's on me. Put it on my shoulders. I have to be better. But instead, you got this soundbite.
As an offense, though, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. Do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No.
Thank you. Yeah, of course it did. Like, he doesn't think he's the reason. Now, special teams let down the defense as well. Everyone let down that defense yesterday. Everybody. Okay?
I'd like
special teams. Someone step up on the podium and ask them the same question. Hey, did you let that defense down? Because everyone let that defense down. The defense was perfect. The defense is great. I do want to re-explore, though, what is being questioned here by Mike and Jeremy, which is, I'm not sure this is fair reporting by the tabloids, that Jets players are bothered that he's walking around the locker room as if he's not the problem. And I just don't know how you can report that accurately. You can report that Jets players might think it. I just don't know that Jets players actually know that Zach Wilson thinks to himself. Like, Zach Wilson goes home that night and he's like, man, our special teams, they cost me the game.
They cost me the game.
Yeah.
And also,
I did my job.
6-3 and we're good.
Yeah, why did the defense allow 3 points? No one's asking them those questions.
How many field goals did New England miss? I saw folks,
I think it was 2.
At least 2.
Yeah.
And
that drove me crazy as well. He hits 1, I cover the spread. They lose the game, at least I cover the spread. For crying out loud.
It's a terrible – that's how you know a quarterback's bad. It's just when you're covering, you're in place, and they have the ball and you're scared. Where you'd rather have your defense out there because the quarterback is going to cost you the spread. It is certifiable. That is how you evaluate a quarterback in today's modern NFL. If I'm afraid when you have the ball because I'm going to lose my cover,
terrified.
You're a bad quarterback. You're just bad.
But just the people listening to this, how often do you watch a second half and your quarterback has 7 drives and can't get over his own 35? How many times have you seen
He's
that?
a bad quarterback.
They had
bad.
2 yards in the second half, Dan. 2.
His approach is so cash too. I don't know if he thinks he's more athletic than he is, or if his college experience kind of spoiled him, but he does not have the pocket awareness to be rolling out trying to make things happen because nothing good is going to happen.
The worst kind of quarterback is the quarterback that has no resume, Dan. No resume, and thinks he's not costing his team. He's costing his team. He's got no resume.
And that face.
Again with the face.
It's the face.
Yeah.
I saw Alec Ingold was quoted in one of these quintessential fullback quotes as saying that he fights for every blade of grass.
Yeah.
Every blade of grass.
That's what you do.
But statistically, that's what the Jets averaged per play.
A blade of grass. It's a game of inches, Dano. They took it to a whole new level.
That's not even inches. That's a game of inch. That's not inches. It's just not possible to be very much more incompetent than that at offense.
No.
And I don't know, Stugotz, how honestly, it's cruel to lose the way that Stugotz lost yesterday, to lose the bet, to lose everything. It's cruel to lose that way.
They've had injuries and they're still super talented at offense. I think Mike McDaniel maybe gets more results. I don't know if your offense and the design isn't helping this quarterback, but geez.
The offensive line has not played well. They're not great. It was a question mark headed into the season. He's still a question mark. They're still a question mark.
Because he had some injuries along the offensive line.
But you have to come up with something better than what they came up with on that final drive.
You just have to come up with a better answer.
Anything.
You have to come up with a better attitude. You have to be accountable. If you're a young quarterback and there have already been seeds of a disconnect, and it's not like you haven't had a quarterback actually come in there and win them games with big plays down the stretch like Joe Flacco did earlier, they know what Joe is capable of. And while the ceiling may not be Zach Wilson's, I mean, Zach Wilson was drafted very high for a reason. He does have a dynamite arm at times. He does have a mobility. I can see why people like Stugotz would still hold out hope.
And that face.
That Zach Wilson is good, but he has the face. It's the face. It's not.
The face.
He's not
going
to be good with that face.
Yeah,
he's just not.
Right.
Put it on the poll, please, Guillermo, at LeBatard Show. Is it even possible for Zach Wilson to be good with that face?
There he is.
Yes! Felicidades! Sandy. Oh my God.
¿Qué lo que, tigre?
¿Te lo imaginaste? ¿Tú creías que podías ganar eso o no?
Sí, claro, cómo no. La confidencia que tenía siempre, creo que eso fue que me puso aquí.
Desde el principio tú tienes esa confianza.
Siempre, desde el día que nací.
He says he's had that confidence since he was born, Stugotz, that he thought he was going to, that he knew he was going to do this, that he knew that he was going to beat Clayton Kershaw for the Cy Young Award. I may be taking some liberties there with the translation. ¿Dónde lo vas a poner? ¿Dónde lo vas a poner? Cuando lo recibes, ¿dónde lo pones?
Mi casa, detrás de mí, en mi oficina.
So it's going to be right behind him, the award. Stugotz, what do you have for Sandy? Obviously, he could do English or Spanish.
Sandy, I'm one. Like, put us there. When you've learned that you have won pitching's highest honor, like, what's going through your mind? Put us there.
I mean, everything came to my mind. I think, but I think the most important thing is when I was able to be outside every fifth day. Because I know I can go to the mouth, and do my best, try to do my best for my team, and I think that confidence that I have, is made me to win the Cy Young.
Sandy,
tú nos puedes explicar a nosotros cómo, cuándo llegaste a los Estados Unidos y qué era la transición para estar aquí y tener la confianza que tienes.
Cuando llegué a los Estados Unidos, creo que fue en el 2014. En el 2014 llegué a Estados Unidos sin inglés, sin familia aquí en los Estados Unidos. Un muchacho que vino a luchar por su sueño. Vine a luchar por mi sueño y gracias a Dios lo logramos. Tuve que sacrificar mucho, sacrificar a mi familia, mi estudio, muchas cosas, ¿sabes? Pero al final del día todo se lo debo a Dios, ¿sabes? Que Él fue quien me puso aquí y esperemos que sea Él quien me quite, ¿sabes? Por eso yo siempre le doy la gracia a Dios siempre y agradecido por todo siempre.
Sandy, this shirt that you were wearing yesterday when you won this, this was nice. Was this velvet? That looked nice.
Beauty.
La camisa que teniste puesta ayer, parecía que era como, solo como una fábrica que lo conocen los ricos. Que parecía que era como más suave que las nubes.
Yeah, suavecita. Little bit expensive, you know what I mean? It's something that I want to look good, from yesterday. I can see it.
Stugotz, just so that you know,
I'm turned on by Billy right now. I got to be honest with you. I mean,
Billy just accused him of having a very wealthy person's shirt that felt and looked like it was made out of clouds because he wanted to wear his nicest shirt when receiving the Cy Young Award.
Yep.
Thank you, Dan.
Well, I've got to translate. I got to help you a little bit because you're smiling, but you look like you're terribly confused.
Listen, I understood your last question. Like, hey, when'd you get here? What was it like? I got some Espanol in me.
When you ask him, Dan, if he was confident and when he knew he was going to win the Cy Young, his response, I know it's just Sandy, your response when they asked you, can you win back-to-back Cy Youngs, was perfect. So tell the people that didn't see, can you win back-to-back Cy Youngs? What'd you say?
Honestly, I mean, if somebody do it, I can do it too. If I win yesterday, I can win next year too. Just gotta doing the same or better, and put everything in God's hands and just go outside and working hard.
Eso es muy humilde because last night lo que dijiste was hell yeah cuando te preguntaron si lo ibas a hacer el año que viene también.
Hell yeah. Claro, with confidence, with confidence.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us en español cuando hablas de los sacrificios que tuviste que hacer? Explícanos.
Bueno, como te digo, llegué aquí a luchar por mi sueño. Tuve que, como te dije anterior, dejar a mi familia, dejar mis estudios, ¿sabes? Adaptarme a una cultura diferente, a comer una comida diferente, ¿sabes? Pienso que todos esos sacrificios, pienso que son las cosas que me ayudaron a quedarme aquí en los Estados Unidos, a dar lo mejor de mí cada día y gracias a Dios lo logramos.
Tuviste mucho miedo al principio, tenía que haber miedo, tienes confianza, pero ese cambio es mucho.
Claro, el miedo siempre estuvo ahí, ¿sabes? Por el asunto de no hablar inglés, de salir a la calle y que una persona me pregunte algo y yo no saber responderle, ¿sabes? Pienso que a la misma vez ese miedo que yo tenía por dentro, ¿sabes? Pienso que a la misma vez nunca tuve ese, ¿sabes? De salir a la calle, ¿sabes? Porque sé que alguien iba a hablar conmigo en español. En todo lugar tú vas a encontrar a alguien que hable tu lengua, ¿sabes?
¿Cómo aprendiste el español?
¿Cómo aprendí el español?
No, disculpa. ¿Cómo aprendiste el inglés?
¿Cómo aprendí inglés? Tomaba clases 3 veces a la semana cuando estaba en liga menores, pero no prestaba mucha atención, ¿sabes? Donde yo más pienso que aprendí fue cuando tenía conversaciones con mi compañero americano. Nunca tuve miedo de preguntarle algo porque sabía que si decía algo mal, ellos me podían corregir. De igual manera ellos lo hacían conmigo, ellos trataban de intercambiar el idioma, ¿sabes? De que yo lo enseñe a ellos y que ellos me enseñen a mí, pero yo presté más atención hablando con ellos que en la clase y pienso que ahí fue donde yo me desarrollé más con el inglés.
Sandy, who has more swag, you or Jazz?
Jazz.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, but you got a Cy Young, man. Jazz doesn't have anything. I mean, you got a Cy Young award.
Wow.
Got swag. I don't got swag,
Can you explain to us, because you made it look very easy, Sandy, when did it become easy?
When?
¿Cuándo?
When what?
Fácil. Lo haces lucir muy fácil. La pelota es difícil. It's not easy to be as dominant as you are.
I know. I mean, it's something that you're learning, I mean, when you came here, playing your favorite sport, I mean, it's something that you got to grow, learning, and working to make look so easy, like you say, I mean, to me, it was a little hard, because, I mean, I got to start in the minor league, going there step by step, get to the big leagues, I mean, since I get there in the big league, I think everything changed, because I don't want to go back to the minor leagues, and I put everything in the same spot, try to build my own routine, and I think that's the key that I have, to make me do everything so easy.
Pero para ti te ha llegado al punto en tu carrera que es fácil o solo estás haciendo lucir fácil.
No, ya pienso que es fácil, pero todavía no me puedo poner que es tan fácil, ¿sabes? Porque si me duermo, eso ya viene otro y me quita, ¿sabes? Pienso que, pienso que para mí esa mentalidad no es siempre eso, ¿sabes? Yo lo hago ver fácil, pero a la misma vez no es fácil, ¿sabes? Porque esto se trata de trabajar fuerte, ser consistente día tras día y pienso que eso es lo que yo tengo de ser siempre la misma persona y siempre trabajar duro.
So, sabiendo que ya es más fácil para ti y ganaste el Cy Young y cogiste todos los votos del primer lugar, ¿qué es lo que tú tienes que hacer para ser mejor? ¿Qué es lo que todavía tú crees puedes hacer mejor de lo que estás haciendo ahora?
Nada, seguir aprendiendo de las cosas pequeñas, seguir mejorando cada día. Yo soy una persona que no me conformo con un poquito ni con mucho, ¿sabes? Yo siempre quiero seguir y seguir hasta donde Dios me dio la oportunidad. Pienso que es algo que yo lo vengo haciendo desde hace muchos años y no lo voy a cambiar. Y con el asunto de los votos, gracias a todo el que aportó ese grano de arena para que yo pueda recibir ese sayón.
Stugotz, what do you think that he is saying right now?
He better be saying he's the best pitcher in the world because he is. I mean, I hope
and he can get better. He can get better is what he's saying.
Yep, just getting started, Dan. Yep.
Uh-huh.
A ti te sorprende, me imagino, cuando te meten un par de carreras, ¿no verdad? Ya tienes la confianza que espera que no hagan ninguna carrera, ¿no verdad?
No, porque todo pitcher no es perfecto, ¿sabes? Tú vas a tener días que te van a hacer 10 carreras, algún día que no te van a hacer carrera. Pero para mí yo nunca pienso en que me van a hacer carrera o que me vayan a hacer carrera, ¿sabes? Yo salgo al terreno a dar lo mejor de mí cada día. Si me hicieron 10 carreras, al instante estoy enojado, pero sé que tengo 4 días para mejorar, para trabajar, enfocarme y a la siguiente salida dar lo mejor de mí, ¿sabes? Por eso es que yo soy un pitcher que tiene altas y bajas y nunca tira la cabeza abajo. Siempre me mantengo siempre arriba trabajando y pienso que esa es la llave que yo siempre voy a tener en mi bolsillo para abrir siempre cada puerta.
El año pasado había instancias cuando tú estás pitchando en el 9º inning y estás como en esa zona y estás pensando, man, nosotros entramos carreras hoy. Si no entramos carrera, I wish we could go 9 or 10 innings, 11 innings. I wish we wouldn't have scored runs so I could keep pitching today.
Sí, claro, hubieron juegos que yo perdía en el 9º 0-0, ¿sabes? 0-0,
Yeah.
el equipo contrario hacía una carrera y perdía, ¿sabes? Pero son días que uno desea que su equipo por lo menos le haga 3 carreras, ¿sabes? Como yo siempre estoy laqueado desde el primer inning. Desde el primer inning joseando que me hagan 3 carreras, porque si me hacen 3 carreras ya, ganamos, ¿sabes? Porque esa es mi mentalidad siempre. Mi mentalidad siempre es terminar todo mi partido y todo el mundo sabe eso.
Sandy, do you miss hitting?
Nah.
What?
No
Why
anymore.
hit when you can pitch like that? What's the matter with you? I mean,
No anymore.
Did you have anyone that you faced at the beginning in the big leagues? You first get to the big leagues where you are amazed and you're pinching yourself because you're like, I can't believe that person's in the batter's box. I can't believe I've arrived here. Obviously, you've shaken that now, pero al principio, ¿tuviste algo de eso?
Mira, cuando yo llegué a Grande Liga, yo quería enfrentar a todo el mundo. Pero ese día recuerdo solamente cuando hice mi primer ponche, que fue a Buster Posey de los Gigantes de San Francisco. Algo que nunca lo voy a olvidar, ¿sabes? Porque ese día fue mi primer día en Grande Liga, mi primer ponche. La pelota me la botó mi hermano. Mi hermano. El año pasado la cogió para soltar con su compañero y me la botó y tuve una pequeña discusión con él, ¿sabes? Pero
Stugotz, his first strikeout, he strikes out Buster Posey. He's in a little bit of awe, and the baseball, he gets to keep it, but his brother went out to play with it and lost it. And he says he had a little discussion with him, which quiero que me
yeah, but
explique
that's what brothers do, Dan. I mean, that's what they did. Your brother, Sandy. Leave him alone. I mean, come on.
nah, just little talk.
What is
¿Qué pasa?
Dominican talk, you know?
¿Y qué pasa si tu hermano pierde su Cy Young?
No, ya no somos hermanos.
¿Qué es lo más
I'm
bravo
assuming that
que
was
tú,
funny. I mean,
¿Qué es lo más bravo que tuviste con Mattingly el año pasado?
Oh, Dan.
No tanto, ¿sabes? No tanto, pero siempre me enojaba cada vez que lo veía, que él se acercaba donde mí a quitarme la pelota. Pero pienso que Don Mattingly fue una tremenda persona. Pienso que esa confianza que él me estaba dando, cada vez que salía palotado, pienso que eso fue lo que me ayudó, ¿sabes? A ser esta persona que soy hoy. Pero de verdad, Don Mattingly fue un tremendo manager para mí y para cada uno de mis compañeros.
Donnie Baseball.
Ya.
Con todos los cambios que hicieron en el coaching staff, ¿cuál es la importancia de quedarse con Mel Stoudemire Jr.?
Mucha importancia, ¿sabes? Porque sin Mel no hubiéramos ganado el Sayón, ¿sabes? El trabajo que hizo Mel conmigo, no solamente conmigo, pero con cada uno de mis compañeros, con cada uno de esos muchachos jóvenes que subían y bajaban, ¿sabes? Pienso que él se enfocó bastante en eso, pero principalmente conmigo. Nos propusimos una meta, la logramos y espero que él esté no solamente conmigo, pero con cada uno de mis compañeros por muchos años aquí en Miami, ¿sabes? Pienso que no solamente yo logré ganar el Sayón, sino con la mano de Mel y también de mi catcher, Jacob Starrett.
Sandy, is there any pitcher in baseball that you say that guy's stuff is as good as mine?
There is a lot of young guys, that have my stuff, I mean, but especially Yuri Perez, Cabrera, those guys, when I see those guys, I think of myself, because I know they got the same stuff that I have, especially Cabrera, man. When Cabrera is on the mouth, then when he's on attack mode, man, you can see what he can do. He can strike him out people. He can throw 7 innings. He gotta be healthy. And Yuri Perez, he's gonna be here soon.
Tony, are you ready to do Refrán del Día here with Sandy?
Estoy listo, Dan. Estoy listo ya con Sandy.
Okay.
Dímelo, Sandy. ¿Cómo está la cosa?
Todo bien.
Coño, qué rico esta salsa.
Te da cuida.
Dale.
Tócala.
Dale, Billy. Dame algo, Billy. Dame algo.
Mira ahí, tocatito.
Okay, Sandy, so this segment, what we do is it's called Refrán del Día. And what I do is I give you a Hispanic phrase, and then you tell the people what it means.
All right.
Okay? So we're going to spin the wheel, and then we're going to get a phrase. Aquí estamos. Let's see, spinning. Oh, my God.
What we got?
No.
El refrán es, mira, el refrán es, ponte las pilas.
But I gotta say it in Spanish, right?
No, I know, but you gotta, you gotta tell them what it is in Spanish or in English.
Ponte la pila.
Ponte
es
la
algo
pila.
que quiere decir como que te ajustes, ¿sabes? Que haga la cosa bien, porque si no te van a votar o van a hacer algo contigo.
Y si no las pilas, tienes que ponerte los patines también.
Those two, yeah. Either or. And what he said, guys, is basically what we're doing is we're putting on our batteries. Ponte la pila means put your batteries in. Because if not, something bad's going to happen. You got to make sure that you're afilado is another word that we could call it.
Afilado.
Chris Cody, I don't know how to say hierarchy in Spanish, pero Sandy, we have a list of how you refer to pitchers based on their status and whether you go from the bottom to the middle to the top. So, Chris, just give him the hierarchy. He'll pick whatever it is he thinks he is, but go ahead and give him like the top 10 things that we have in order from the bottom to the top.
All right, we got innings eater, knuckleballer, ground ball specialist, workhorse, flamethrower, crafty, top of the rotation, horse, ace, god, caballo, caballote.
¿Cuál eres?
Workhorses.
No, you're not a workhorse.
God.
No, eso es
Deja
mierda.
eso.
Tú no eres
Deja
workhorse.
eso.
Tú eres caballo.
Deja eso.
No,
No.
workhorse.
Eres caballo caballote, not workhorse. Get out of here.
Caballote.
Andy, felicidades. Gracias. We appreciate your
Gracias.
time and we're happy for you. It's crazy to think that this soon in your career you've won the Cy Young Award.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't know if it was on the broadcast yesterday, but off the top of your head, stugotz, do you remember the last time the Jets beat the Patriots?
I want to say maybe 12 seasons ago, it feels like. Oh, the playoffs. I mean, they had that playoff victory with Mark Sanchez. Regular season, I don't think they've won in New England in like 10 to 12 years.
It's 14 straight games the Patriots have beaten the Jets, so that's 7 straight years of losing to the Patriots, and there hasn't been a crueler one than the way that yesterday ended, because stugotz was still talking to me during the break about how his wife forced him to get away from the television because he was still just staring at it with his head in his hands because of the way that game ended.
She said to me, I think you've gone 50 minutes now without communicating. It's time to snap out of it. I then explained to her for the first time, not only did the Jets lose, I had the Jets plus 3.5.
Yes.
That hurt. Dan, you could have punted that ball anywhere. Listen, it's going to sound like, Captain Hindsight. I'm armed with hindsight. I was sitting there going, don't punt it to a human being. Get it out of bounds. I don't care if you turn and kick it out of our end zone. Kick it sideways.
Well, no, wait a minute.
That's a safety.
That would have
lost the game. That would have been problematic. Just turn left or right and just but our quarterback.
What is that going to do with it?
Kick it sideways. Kick it anywhere. Just don't kick it to a person who has a chance to score. That's it. And what did they do? They kicked it to a human being. And that person scored. He took it to the house. I can't believe it. I still can't. I'm still in shock, man. I really am.
Speaking of kicking,
Jesus.
Billy and Chris Cody, I feel like we have lost Chris Whittingham and Mike Ryan, that they're not paying attention to what it is that we're doing. It's rare for televisions to be on during our show with live sporting event. And they care very deeply that Iran's good defense has given up 3 English goals already while we're watching. And we're getting complaints already. And I don't know what to do with these complaints because Meadowlark Media is covering the holy hell out of the World Cup. We have so many different things that are being done around here. We'll get to some of them in a second. But somebody writes in, God bless football was just plain offensive. Get that out of here. And don't stain your other awesome show with soccer talk again, please. Not a single one of the show's fans wants soccer coverage.
Is that guy?
Also, someone writes in, usually Witty is a voice of reason on the show, but that was the weakest and most mealy-mouthed rationalization for gleefully and willfully participating in bloody human rights abuses that I've ever heard. While I think Amin wears his hypocrisy like a Star Wars t-shirt, at least he's not trying to put a jacket on over it.
Is that guy?
You guys want to tell people how much Meadowlark Media and our show is covering the World Cup? Because it's the morally abhorrent podcast that Whittingham and Mike Ryan are doing. You got Cooligans. You got football with Grant Wall.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Ashley and Allie. How many things are we doing?
We've got, now stugotz and Billy Gill have added a 6th.
Yeah.
Because we have Ashton Harris and Ali Krieger are doing their show. We also are co-producing a podcast with Apple with Brendan Hunt of Ted Lasso and Rebecca Lowe. So that's 5. And then stugotz, Billy, Chris Cody, and Greg Cody on this week's episode of Stupidity did God Bless Football, which stugotz and I have been joking about doing for about 5 months. You executed it. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's the podcast no one asked for, but we decided to do it anyways.
I really built up Iran's defense on God Bless Football. How's that working out for me? I'm telling you, they had a good defense coming into this tournament.
I mean, you made them sound like the 85 Bears. You did. I mean, you really did. Listen, I am shocked right now. Mike, are you shocked? Because England is playing Iran right now. I thought Iran would park the bus. I thought this would be a closer game.
I am shocked, stugotz. I am. Who could have seen this coming? The organized Iran back line. English have been electric today. You mentioned everything that we got going on, like menu items. It's a World Cup. I think most people would afford us this during the competition.
It's like how breakfast restaurants have a bunch of eggs Benedict. That's what we have. We have a bunch of eggs Benny. You can have them different ways. You can get them with crab cake. You can get them here. It's like covering the same thing. It's all Benedict. It's all World Cup. Different types.
Well, this is the biggest sporting event in the world. There are many people who care about it. Stugotz's takes for 15 years now have been always some form of soccer is dead or 0-0 is every game. And this year, he's disappointed because when he wasn't pantomiming, punting the ball right out of bounds during the break. What he was complaining about is he's like, I don't understand. These guys have been telling me. Whitty and Mike have been telling me for years. The U.S.'s young players are playing in the Premier League. They're ready for this stage. And now we get here and I want to wrap myself in patriotism and they have no hope about the United States soccer team.
Yeah, you guys have pumped them up for 2 years. Like we have players playing in the good leagues. They're good. They're young. They're fast. They could, maybe present a problem for some teams in the World Cup here. And the party is here, and I've arrived, and I'm ready to celebrate this United States team, but you guys aren't. You guys seem to think they have no chance, and me, Billy, Chris, and Greg, we think they're the favorites, and they should be the favorites.
The favorites?
I mean, one of them at least. The
favorites?
I don't know a lot. I know what these guys have told me over the last 2 years about how good these kids are.
I have not told you that they're going to win the World Cup.
Competitive, maybe though, right?
I mean, they're in a very tough group, and I think we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot from today's game. I think today's game. I don't think you can underestimate this game headed into it. I know it's match week 1, but this is a hugely important game for them, and I think it basically will define what the World Cup experience will look like. But you mentioned everything that we have going on. Make sure to head over to our YouTube, where Woody and I will be live from Bottled Blonde today, where the American Outlaws are having their watch party. YouTube.com/LeBatard and friends. Yes, it's a lot of different eggs Benedict, as you like to put it, and everyone's going to be coming at it from a different angle. You have Grant Wall, boots on the ground in Qatar. You have the Cooligans humorous slant on things. You have Ashlyn and Allie doing their perspective on the micro social issues that are coming out of this Qatari World Cup. I'm very interested in you former players that have competed in a World Cup, and we'll be there for the immediacy of it all, underlining the big stories of the day, and that'll be on our post-game feed on DLS. We're not carving out a new podcast for it. It'll just be a part of our post-game shows here throughout the tournament for most of the matches here, and we're very excited about it. Please afford us that. I know it's a World Cup, and usually when you've had to deal with us talking about World Cup, you're okay with it because there's not a lot going on. Trust me, a lot of NFL talk throughout the main show, too. We're going to try to keep things in different silos for you.
But, Stu, to your point about the U.S., I think today's game against Wales is essentially a 50-50. If you look at the
coin toss,
right? No, it's what it is. If you look at the world rankings, if you look at the other ways that they rate national teams, today's game is a complete and utter coin toss. And maybe you thought the U.S. would be a little bit better than a coin toss against Wales, but that their performances have not dictated that. I think a lot of the young players that have come through have met some speed bumps in their development, which is to be expected. And I honestly have no feel for how this game is going to play out today. I think what Iran is showing right now is maybe what's happening back home in their country is really affecting their ability to perform well at this tournament, because I was not expecting a 3-0 first half scoreline. But either way, I think the U.S. enters this World Cup with a ton of questions, and we don't really know how they'll go against a team that, while I think the U.S. is more talented than Wales, I think they are a better cohesive unit than the U.S. are. And so we'll see over the course of 90 minutes whether or not the U.S. can take that step up and perform well at a World Cup.
This is not a time for perspective, though.
Exactly.
This is before the first game. This is when America... You can have perspective if they lose against Wales. Before Wales, we have American pride.
Exactly.
If you don't like soccer, come on in. The water's warm.
Right.
Fake it for the next month. Put on walk into a sports bar today and just start chanting USA. I'm telling you, everyone will join
It's that kind of day.
It's fun.
It is, yeah.
Have a couple brews at 2 p.m. on a Monday. Come on. What are we doing here? If you're mad at this event right here, it's on you. It's not on the World Cup.
If you're mad now, right? If they lose to Wales, everyone's going to be mad.
Well, you really hope that they don't lay an egg over there, because this is their opportunity to grab some people. And if they win this game, I think they come out of the group. I think this game is essentially for second place right now. I think the encouraging sign is
second
in the group, which obviously gets you to the
You guys
knockout.
know England's really good.
England's in the group.
They sort of invented the sport.
Are they in our group? I mean,
Friday.
Ever heard of 1776?
Okay.
I mean,
What is happening with God Bless Football?
I'm over there keeping them.
We're
here.
taking the United States, Dan.
Yeah.
Wait,
We're riding with them.
Chris Cody is
They
the
need
expert
support.
on God Bless.
Stugotz and Billy are just America.
Yeah.
On
I'm the perspective on that podcast.
I took Ecuador yesterday. I mean, come on. I told you on the pod I was going to take Ecuador, and I took Ecuador.
So did I.
Yes.
I would like the audience to understand God bless football is just going to be a mockery of Whittingham and Mike.
There's a menu of Eggs Benedict everywhere, and then somewhere on our menu there's just jelly donut and Jack Daniels. And that's what God bless football is going to be. The point that I was trying to get to is if you look at these rosters right now, USA and Wales, US very clearly to me has the more talented side. And that's not something that you could say in previous World Cups that, oh, this team actually is a more talented side than this European country. I understand it's been a long time since Wales have been into the World Cup, but they have a superstar. They're kind of built like a former U.S. team in that you know that they have the one older guy that has European experience that might be playing in MLS right now. You got to watch out for him. But I'm telling you, Wales are pretty organized. They know how to play, and the U.S. have really lacked an identity. I've got no idea what the starting 11 is going to look like. I know what I want it to kind of look like. This is why you play this style throughout the qualifying is if you play an attacking game against Wales, conceivably you have the talent to win out. And that's not something that you can often say when the U.S. takes on a European side. So I'm curious to see how attacking the U.S. will be and if they'll actually lean into the talent disparity.
Forgive my ignorance here. Is the verb Wales are or Wales is?
Oh, this is an English soccer thing. So they over there describe teams as plurals. So it's England are, Wales are.
That's the way it should be.
That actually has completely ruined my ability to get is and are correctly in every other context, and I don't like that about myself.
After today's game, Dan, it will be Wales was. I mean,
USA! USA! USA!
USA!
Jack and a jelly donut.
They're winning it all, Mike.
Put it on the poll here at LeBatard Show, Guillermo, as we segue into the other kind of football. Is Jacoby Brissett going to start the afterlife with a 3-7 record? Also, I had my heart broken yesterday, stugotz. I had my heart broken by football yesterday.
What happened?
Oh, Jeff Satuday was so close to making him crazy. So close. He was so close to making every coach who has ever coached in that sport just nuts by just going back to Matt Ryan.
That's all he did.
And practicing outside. That was it. That was don't forget.
The eyes.
He wanted to toughen up the team by practicing them outside. I'm starting to lose faith in Siriani. He did a lot to actually win me over during the season. I don't know what he was doing with the clock management at the end. It worked out, but did you see how fired up he was?
Yeah.
I was very confused by it. And apparently he was so deeply offended that they fired his mentor, Frank Reich. He was very emotional afterwards, really pissed off that Jim Irsay took this away from him, the opportunity to coach against his mentor. And he used that motivation to edge out the Colts by 1.
You got a little Andrew Luck there.
It was a beautiful revenge game for Nick Siriani. Just a beautiful man. A good family. Good heart. Good heart.
I saw something yesterday as well, stugotz. This happened in the Cleveland Buffalo game, and I know we all know that Jadeveon Clowney seems a bit superhuman, and you imagine that he's going to get all the sacks, but they've made so many evolutions in the sport to get rid of the ball quickly that it's harder to get to the sacks. But yesterday, I'm pretty sure I saw something I hadn't seen before, which is Clowney, while being blocked, I think he tackled a running back. I think it was Singletary. Tackled a running back with one arm and did it so hard that Singletary got up and wanted a roughing call. And it's just penalizing
the running back.
Clowney. Penalize him. I want a flag because he's just Clowney.
I'm still a little conflicted when I watch the Browns because every time Nick Chubb has an amazing run, I kind of get charged up because I like watching him play. I am kind of happy that this season was totally undone by them revisiting the suspension because Deshaun Watson would have been back in time for the Bengals game under the previous suspension. And Jacoby Brissett, he looks like he's headed for Canton every time they script the first series, and then it just totally unravels for him. And it's the reason why they're not going to be in the playoffs this year. The quarterback position.
Has Myles Garrett been the same since the car accident? Because I'm so used to him dominating these games, and it's weird to watch these games, no matter how quickly they get rid of the football, where he's not impacting them.
He's been
the way I'm used to.
Yeah, he's been all right. He didn't get to Tua, and Tua, there was actually cool NFL Films footage of Tua saying, I was doing everything I could to avoid your graveyard, because Myles Garrett every Halloween just puts all the quarterbacks that he's going to play in his in grave zones on his yard. Those are difficult. Tua gets the ball out very fast, and obviously Josh Allen, who in that first half, I think a lot of us were starting to be a little concerned. Oh no, are we back to old Josh Allen again? To me, the problem is the quarterback in Cleveland. Myles Garrett is still impacting plays. It's a fair question to ask, but the sample size is so small. He's gone up against.
I was just curious because I'm only watching them when other teams are in the red zone, and I saw the stat line. When they played the Dolphins, and he didn't do very much.
I think he had a game before that where he performed pretty well.
He had a sack and a half the game before that, 2 sacks the game before that.
He's still graded the #1 edge rusher by Pro Football Focus. So he's got 8 sacks, 3 hits, 31 hurries this year. He's still performing at an immensely high level.
The Eagles, stugotz, that is the first time that they have come back from 10 down in the fourth quarter since 2010. Jeff Saturday was so very close.
Yes.
To making me crazy too. I don't know why I've become like a coaching establishment guy, but I was looking at that score all day going, no, he's not. He's going to go 2-0. What is this job if Jeff Saturday can go 2-0?
You were rooting against that?
Yeah, I was. Man, I was rooting against it because I just don't. What do we make of this sport? What do we do with the notion of expertise?
Why are we acting like they hired me? He's a former player.
Right.
He's going to be like a Hall of Famer, isn't he? Is he not a Hall of Famer?
But you don't think the leading of men as a coach is something that must be learned with training? You think you can just...
No, I think he's a leader. I think Jeff Saturday was a leader as a player and is just a leader in life.
So you're saying that anybody who's a leader in life can coach an NFL team?
No, I think if you were a leader, a perennial Pro Bowler on an NFL team for 10 plus years, it's not crazy to say you could, you're not calling plays. You're just kind of making sure everyone I don't
everyone's
understand.
Accountable. Everyone's feeling good. He's just got people in the right places, letting the other coaches do their job.
This is what I would say on behalf of that job as a public face and voice for a team, that you could get through the first 2 weeks of not knowing anything by just letting your staff do what your staff does.
But that's exactly what he's doing, and he has an experienced defensive coordinator, an inexperienced offensive coordinator, and the offense still looks a little limited. They kind of have the first scripted drive down, and then the game gets away from the offense. But the construct of his being hired means that he has to let the other coaches coach. He's not going to walk in through the door and start devising a game plan. He's getting to know everybody. It's just the raw leadership, how he can rally a locker room and get people invested. He seems to be having that part of the job down. They haven't checked out on him. They seem to be responding to his type of thing. They seem like they can be a trustworthy team when it comes to covering. They weren't that earlier in the season.
But Dan, he said all the right things on the front end. He said, I realize why people are upset that I got this job. I have no idea if I'm going to be good at this job. But Jim Irsay wanted to give me an opportunity, and I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm here. And so I'm going to try to do the best that I can. And I'm just shocked. I shouldn't be shocked, but I still am. That Bill Cowher is so upset about it. That Rex Ryan is so upset about it. That Nick Siriani, as Mike pointed out earlier, had to go out of his way to talk about how much he wanted to coach against Frank Reich. Frank Reich thought Sam Ehlinger was the answer, and he's not. And so he was fired for it.
But which part of this don't you understand? Imagine if I said to you right now, stugotz, somebody else is going to do the show in that chair that you're in, and they don't have experience. They have experience doing things in broadcasting.
Right.
But they don't have experience doing that. But anybody can do it. Anybody who has talked in front of a microphone can do that as well as you do it. Do you realize how less important that makes Rex Ryan and Bill Cowher and Siriani feel that there's this idea that you can take somebody who has no experience, no training at that job and you're given that job. It's what they're protecting, how important they are.
No, and I understand that. But again, this is not just, as Chris pointed out, we're not pulling me or Chris off the street and saying, go be the coach of the Colts. It's Jeff Saturday.
But you're pulling someone who's not a coach, someone who hasn't actually done that thing. When Chris Whittingham asks, what's the job? Because I heard everybody tell me Deion Sanders couldn't do it, stugotz. Deion Sanders wanted to start that way, and everyone said he couldn't do it. Why can't he do it?
I think the analogy is you're taking a host that's been sitting in a host chair and you're just putting him in an executive producer chair, and they're familiar with how it goes. Jeff Saturday's been coached by really good coaches. He's played with really good players. He was reputed to be one of the smarter players when he was playing. You have to be to play center with Peyton Manning. You have to be brilliant. That is an incredibly demanding job. And he's been keeping up with football. People talk about him like he is this guy off the street, and you're saying that he doesn't have experience. I think he has loads of experience on how to lead a football team. He was one of the football team's leaders, and that's really all he's looking at this job. I'm going to let my coaches coach, and I'm going to try to get my players as motivated as I can throughout the week.
It can be a questionable hire. We can debate whether it's a good hire or not, but to just act like he is completely unqualified, like they hired a YouTuber, that's what I don't get. Like, we can debate whether it's a good hire or not, but he obviously knows the sport.
But listen to what Mike Ryan is saying. Listen to the words that he's using there that offend these coaches who are used to 16-hour days. I don't have time with my family. He's familiar with football. Familiar is the word he used. Mike said he's been keeping up with things. Do you understand how offensive that is to these people who believe that familiar and keeping up with things isn't how you win in a salary cap sport where all of these games are decided by 3 points and you got to get advantages everywhere you can get them? And the way to get advantages, if that coach is working 16 hours a week, or 16 hours a day, I'm going to work 17 hours a day. If that coach is sleeping in his office, I'm going to outwork that coach and get whatever little control I can have over the results. I'm going to get it there. The idea that someone who's familiar with and has been keeping up with football, it's sacrosanct what you guys are suggesting to the people who treat their jobs like the cathedral they think it is.
I've never not understood why they didn't take such offense and why the takes have been so hot. I totally understand why they're doing it. I will also say that we never really seen this, and we don't really know what the data might suggest about it. And I think it's an interesting case study. I'm sure Bill Cowher feels like he can hop down from his desk and he wouldn't be too offended on behalf of coaches if Jim Irsay gave him a call. Because I feel like, 20 years ago, the game hasn't really changed. If you heard that man's takes, that guy's more out of touch with the sport than Jeff Saturday's been.
And I love these takes coming from guys, I mean, seriously, who don't want to coach anymore. They don't want to do it anymore. Rex doesn't want to do it. Why? He's getting paid a lot of money for ESPN, a lot less hours, a lot easier. And same with Bill Cowher, getting paid. He doesn't want to do it anymore. So you're going to complain about Jeff Saturday, who wants to do it, who wants to be a head coach? You're not coaching. You're going to complain about Saturday? Dan, this is not a radio host. This is not Mike Francesa, who once thought he could manage the Yankees, okay? This is Jeff Saturday, who played the sport, who was the captain of the Colts at one point in his life.
Stugotz, I'm right with you, and I want the funny things as well. I'm just telling you, you see how close these games are. And coaches, you keep telling me how important they are about getting those little extra advantages wherever it is they are. I don't know what little extra advantage Jeff Saturday is unique to Jeff Saturday.
It's just a manager, and watching their games, the things that Jeff Saturday would be in charge of. If you hear him you see him occasionally on the headphones. I've got no idea how active Jeff Saturday is in the game planning. I'm pretty sure he just strolls into a meeting, because how could you go into a meeting and have all these opinions? I think if Gus Bradley draws up a defensive game plan, you're like, yep, all right, we'll go with that. And just don't screw up the timeouts. Don't screw up the time management. Don't do anything that jumps off the screen that's embarrassing. And Nick Siriani was actually the head coach that had the more questionable moves in that game. Jeff Saturday seems like he fits in. There hasn't been the Nathaniel Hackett thing. Have you ever felt in these two games that Jeff Saturday's like Nathaniel Hackett?
How long do you think I could fool you guys by just putting a paid actor, on the sideline who looks like a coach and talks like a coach and gives good press conference? How long do you guys think that the military machine that is a football organization, That if I put a guy in charge just to look the part, how many games do you think I can get away with?
Well, I think it's a little
before anyone discovers my fraud.
I understand why Bill Cowher and Joe Thomas are speaking on behalf of all these coaches that have gotten glossed over. But these coaches that are on that staff have a hard job. Do you understand what a difficult job it is to just make the defensive substitution seem so seamless?
Yeah, and to get the play off that quickly.
They had this instance last night during Sunday Night Football where because the Chargers call a timeout, they can huddle up their offensive groupings and then they just burst out of the huddle and everyone's ready to go within a half second. You have to call a timeout because there's no way you can get the right personnel in there. Can you imagine how hard that job is?
Yes.
You never thought about it at all you never thought about it until there's a too many men on the field penalty and it drives you crazy and you're always like, how can you be so unorganized? And you blame the head coach. They have 4 fucking seconds to figure out whether or not they need dime coverage or to have an extra linebacker or to spy. They have 4 seconds to process this by just yelling at 300-pound men saying, get on and off the field. 4 seconds.
Yes, it's crazy.
The Colts seem fine at doing that. Jeff Saturday hasn't screwed that up.
Right.
You know he's not a yes man. You know he's not a yes man because he told Peyton Manning to run the damn ball.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Peyton wanted to throw. He said, run the damn ball.
Yeah.
The other thing that I enjoyed on the sideline is that he used to be an offensive lineman, and he looks so small now. He looks more like
so he has good discipline. He has good discipipline with his diet.
Deflated.
Exactly.
You're so right.
Deflated.
It is.
Yes.
He is physically deflated. He
like a flat tire.
He looks 150 pounds lighter than when he was playing center for that team and screaming at Peyton Manning.
But Dominique Foxworth once sat in the studio and told us, why can't a coach just be a good leader of men, a CEO? Doesn't have to make every decision, just galvanizes people, gets them in the right direction, plays to their strengths, and maybe Jeff Saturday is really good at that. Dan, we were so close because he beat Josh McDaniels, who has 7 rings, and he almost beat the Eagles yesterday. And next week, it's Mike Tomlin at home. I mean, a legend, okay? A coaching legend. And we were so close to having that matchup.
We were denied that. I don't know what you guys found to be the most interesting things from yesterday. Mahomes' routine greatness is something that I suppose we're somewhat numb to already, but I wouldn't be. The idea that they would be playing that game late and you're expecting him to take them down the field. You're expecting, you all know he's throwing to Kelce. We all know. I thought that the greatest thing I'd ever seen between those two combinations was Gronk and Brady, but I legitimately don't understand how everyone knows you got to stop Kelce, and Mahomes just says after the game, if he's one-on-one, I'm always going to him. And
why is he one-on-one?
There will be no stopping of that. It's not a stoppable thing.
Patrick Mahomes' greatness is overshadowing Travis Kelce's greatness because I don't think, for me, the peak of the position was always Gronk because he could also block like an absolute menace. So I'm always going to go with healthy Gronk. Travis Kelce is making me think about it, especially as he gets older in his career, to still be as dominant. You can sit back and say, well, sometimes Patrick Mahomes' greatness is going to be he can just put the ball, he can simply put the ball in a spot that is impossible to get to. He had one of those on a long third down earlier in the game. It's just a bonkers throw that we've grown accustomed to it. For me, the thing that's even more of a historical outlier, because we've seen plenty of great quarterbacks, the tight ends taking over a game and being just totally dominant. And it doesn't matter if you drafted Derwin James specifically to stop Travis Kelce. There's just simply nothing you can do with the size, the speed, and the intelligence of Travis Kelce. He may still be very good as long as his body holds up very late in his career.
He never misses games.
He's just
never.
How many?
Well, he actually missed his entire rookie season. That people seem to get confused about Travis Kelce. He was this project, and he was a former quarterback. He entered the league. He was injured for an entire year.
And he's Gronk's age, correct?
He developed into this all-time great.
He's still Gronk's age, but give me the numbers just from his just year after year games missed.
2004. I don't think he's missed a game. It's one game in 2020.
And one last year because he played 16 out of a possible 17.
Yeah.
Since he began playing, as Mike said, in 2014, he's missed 2 games.
Did he lead the league in receiving a year ago, 2 years ago?
Last year, I think he was
close to the top.
In 2020, he had 105 catches for 1,410 yards, 11 touchdowns.
I think
he's ridiculous.
He wasn't leading receiver last year in the NFL.
I mean, I don't think
Cup had to be.
Yeah, it was Cup.
Yeah.
Mike, last night I had to revise my quarterback tight end combination. You might want to partake in this list here. But my top 5 quarterback tight end combos of all time, I had to revise it because I moved Mahomes and Kelce up a spot in my rankings.
Yeah,
how about that?
They're top 2.
I know.
It's Brady Gronk, Mahomes, Kelce, Elway Sharp.
Yep, Phil Simms and Mark Bavara.
When you guys talk about something that I do believe is overlooked all the time, which is if we had to execute a drive, our show, we would get everything wrong and run into each other, and the play clock would always get us. And the idea...
I'd be terrified of that play clock.
Just being base defense the entire time. We're just 4-3. Doesn't matter if they spread it out and they go 5 wide. We're going to be 4-3 because we can't handle the subs.
But because I've been watching football all my life, and yet still I do sometimes take some of the difficulties for granted. And the professionals are so good at it that when Nathaniel Hackett isn't, we all notice immediately. But even given that, I was legitimately and properly stunned that TCU and a bunch of college kids saved their season by running out on the field in seconds and kicking a field goal because their coach had screwed up. And I think he screwed up. You can't run the ball.
When Mike was talking about Siriani screwing up clock management, I was screaming at the television, what is Sonny Dykes doing? They ran 2 running plays and they huddled with no timeouts with a minute left to play.
He's winning.
Playing for a college kicker to make a 45-yard field goal. I thought everything about that scenario spelled catastrophe, and they somehow got it to perfection, running a field goal unit onto the field with 16 seconds left.
Did you see Dave Aranda after that field goal went in? Motionless. But that's him all the time.
I do not trust college kids to correctly and in organized fashion get up and eat breakfast.
Let alone being able to pull that off.
To save the season. We were close to so many wonderful bad things happening in college football this weekend. What are you rooting for in that situation?
I want Alabama in without making the championship game with 2 losses. And they are so close. What a weekend for Saban. Because Tennessee lost. And Michigan, Ohio State have to play each other. One of those teams is going to be out.
They're going to get in.
Keep an eye on them.
LSU has to play Georgia. In all likelihood, they're going to lose that game.
They're going to lose because they made it to the SEC title game and beat Alabama.
He's getting in.
They're going to miss out because they beat Bama.
You guys are rooting. You guys are now rooting for Saban to get in with.
TCU and Michigan both almost lost. Alabama could have been at like number 6 this week.
I'm in on this.
How about USC all of a sudden?
USC still has to play Notre Dame, has to play the Pac-12 championship game. I mean,
but how about USC fixing everything just by grabbing a coach and quarterback?
The quarterback. It wasn't just that. They had a huge roster turnover. I think that's what getting the jump on hiring Lincoln Riley and firing Clay Helton helped them out so much because players already kind of decided we're on the way out. It's what they're trying to do down here in Miami. It's just embrace the portal, embrace players leaving. We have to totally change the culture. We can't be losing these same BS games that we always lost. We can't become accustomed to it. But also on top of that, let's get arguably the best quarterback in the country too.
And have an enormous schematic advantage on their opponents. Like Lincoln Riley is such a good coach.
Yeah, he is the perfect coach to just come in and fix you inside of a year because players want to play for him. Because he's got this great tried and true offense. If you play quarterback in his system, you're making it to the pros. You're going to be taken high in all likelihood. He got Caleb Williams. The offense is super fun to play in. And because the administration was pretty clear-minded about what they wanted to do, it allowed for them to lay this foundation to be able to hit the ground running in a conference that is winnable. They succeeded where Miami failed in a lot of the places because they drug on their search.
Well, and the comparison hurts Cristobal the same way that we keep going back and forth last year on Herbert and Burrow and Tua. The comparison, there it is. Like, oh my God, you can fix it that quickly.
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Because now you can grab the coach and the quarterback. that combination, because as good as Lincoln Riley is, Caleb Williams has 40 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Like, that's what turned USC around. Getting that, like, Mike, you pointed him out to me last year saying he might be the best quarterback in college football.
He was dynamite last year. He was a huge prize. I think every excellent college football player should do what Caleb Williams did. No matter how good it was going for you in your place, no matter how happy it was, no matter how much success, you should always threaten to leave once and see what your value is. And even though it seemed like it was a certainty that he was going to USC, dude was still at the very last second calling other schools. He wanted to come down to Miami in the worst way. Miami wouldn't do it because it would complicate things with Tyler Van Dyke. It is just an effort to raise their price, because right now, if you're a quarterback like Caleb Williams, you are making more than a second-round draft pick. I think you're going to see a lot of players
in that market.
It's going to be so crazy the way
Tyler's going to come back. In previous years, Tyler would just be like, I'll win them over in the test. Everybody will assume that my offensive coordinator was terrible. But now, if I'm Tyler Van Dyke, I'm a project. I might be a day 3 draft pick.
And he can still make money.
I'm going to make more money by coming back to the University of Miami than what is a second-round draft pick.
I'd love to see what it's going to look like when these boosters get in bidding wars now, not for the next Jimbo Fisher, but for the next guy who comes with a combination at quarterback that will reinvent me from one weekend to the next, because I'm changing the. Do you realize what that's worth? That's underpaid. If I can,
of course,
we saw the numbers being thrown around in NIL and in coaching for those two guys. They're big numbers. They're underpaid if that's what they do.
Did you see the rumors and innuendo out there about what Jaden Rashada got to flip? He was originally a UF commit.
Went to Florida. This is the biggest recruit. He's a 5-star recruit.
Well, Cormani McClain was a 5-star. So the story of Jaden Rashada is he was originally committed to Florida. Miami flipped his commit. Jaden Rashada's NIL representative said the Florida collective is as unorganized as I've ever come across. I will never tell one of my players to go there. Cormani McClain, who was Crystal Ball, not Mario Cristobal, the recruiting crystal ball, had projected him. It's a real thing in recruiting. I know it's
24/7 Sports.
It's a big deal anytime somebody
have to make the corrections on how you say that. Yes, the crystal ball.
Everybody assumed Cormani McClain was going to the University of Florida like a thief in the night. Mario, and I know from the pursuit of Cormani McClain, Mario Cristobal recruited his ass off. That was after the Duke loss. If you want to assume it's about money, and because I've seen a bunch of people with their conspiracy theories that, John Ruiz dropped the bag. Tell me, John Ruiz was surprised Cormani McClain was coming. This was like old school recruiting by Mario Cristobal. It wasn't this bag dropping, but after Florida took that optics L, Florida and Miami right now are having an epic recruiting battle. It does not match what's going on the field. They are having an all-timer right now. It is an arms race. FSU, for as good of a season as they've had, not really a factor down here in South Florida. Florida has gotten their shit together. That guy Heitner has helped organize. He was one of those guys that was aligned with John Ruiz earlier on. He's helped organize that UF collective. And Rashada, if you believe what's on the message boards, went for $11 million. It's over a 4-year commitment. I cannot pound the table enough. It is not sustainable to be giving 17-year-olds millions upon millions of dollars. The college football playoff needs to step in, take this, get some sort of salary cap, because this is insanity.
No. I understand why you would want that. No. More chaos. This is your bed that you made. Of course, as soon as everyone starts grabbing at money, the explosion is going to be, so this is the only way the injustices get corrected on what these players are paid. Because, Mike, I just got done saying, how much were the numbers on Lincoln Riley and Williams? What were the numbers? Wasn't it $1 million on Williams?
Yeah, Williams cleared.
Yeah.
Williams cleared 7 figures.
And if that's what you get, the smart boosters and money, once it gets organized, is going to make those kinds of guys even more disposable by, again, there's no salary cap in the NFL, by just getting 4 and 5 of those guys, by eliminating the recruiting disadvantages that they have, by just if you can fill your stadium all of a sudden, the way USC can, while UCLA dies across the street because their athletic department is hemorrhaging and they can't get people to the game. And next thing you know, you can fill your stadium and get that excitement by just putting down a few $1 million. You tell me what program in the country, if I said, hey, $50 million here is what it's going to cost you.
Well, Lincoln Riley was $110 million, but still, it brought Caleb Williams. Like, to me, that's worth it. Like, they're number 5 in the country right now, number 5 or 6 in the country with a good shot of making the playoffs in their first season.
You can't have a crowd-funded NFL salary cap.
Why not? We've got it now.
You do, but it's not sustainable. It's just you're going to the same people. You don't have this billionaire in most cases, an owner just getting more money, and there isn't a salary cap to protect them. I think the college football playoff needs to institute some rules that can be followed and still allow for a wild, wild west thing, but to be giving a 17-year-old who you've never seen play in college more than a day 2 draft pick, it seems...
Mike,
but what's your argument against it?
Why are you running the business? I want
because you got to do it every year.
Lawlessness.
Because you got to do it every year.
But what do you
and
think?
Because you have these massive rosters, and because you have impressionable kids, and because you have parents that are going to be asking for more at all times, you have to be able to build a successful program within 4 years. Otherwise, it is an abject failure.
Your management. I want free marketplace. Your management. You're talking like management. Like, I need rules. I need structure. I can't win this way. And I'm like, no, totally free, chaotic marketplace. Make it total chaos. It's not college football anymore. It's mini pro football. Pay the players like it. They have the value. These TV contracts are insane.
But mini pro football players get paid based on their performance. And
you're not saying it's an issue.
I mean,
once
guys are being paid. Kids are being paid by performance in high school.
NIL, yeah. Well, Rashada is actually from California, and Rashada could make NIL money before he actually entered. That's another thing is why there needs to be an NIL policy is because different states have different advantages. Where I can pay a kid in high school NIL money, but I can't in Florida. If I go to Tennessee, Tennessee will broker a deal with FedEx themselves.
Yeah, but
whereas in the state of Florida,
the Miami Heat get all these players because of Florida's state income tax advantages
and culture.
But I understand they're with the administration actually becoming more involved in it in other schools such as Tennessee. It is obviously a very clear advantage, and I would like a set group of rules to get back to what NIL should be, which is it doesn't sway your decision to come here. Once you come here, then you get paid. That's actually the rule, and it's, not even discussed that way. If you listen to recruiting sites or recruiting podcasts, it's about what can we pay this player to come here. That's the reality of college football. It's not hiding. The rule is it's against the rules. You can't talk NIL until you get a firm commitment. So I'd like to get back to some of that, where you have people going to your program based on a vision. And yeah, we can have that NIL discussion. You see what so-and-so made when they got here. But right now, it's people building shell corps. And it's getting too big already too quickly. Without any fundamental set rules and guidelines that are national, it's going to become unsustainable for a lot of these billionaires, and you get nothing out of it. When I have fundraising conversations with people and they ask me what's in it for me, nothing. You feel better on Saturdays. Your team won.
You're advocating for the NCAA having more power. That's what you're
advocating.
No.
Mike, I just want to clarify this for a second.
NCAA
You're good if Caleb Williams, once he's established himself as a good college quarterback, going elsewhere, taking the money, doing that.
Whatever.
You're saying stop throwing $11 million at 17-year-olds that you have no idea are good. No, Dan, I'm with you. I just want to clarify what Mike is saying.
I think
it's before they get to college, you have an issue with it.
I think the CFP should take over, and there should be a set salary for every player on the roster, and then you can obviously look at history and have NIL dictate. If I go there, it's pretty likely. I think it's a dangerous place where we are, where it's just people, boosters, in some respects, reaching out to parents, sometimes directly to the kids, and saying, all right, how can we figure out an NIL package? The way the conversations go is, I need $1 million. And then you figure out, how do I get NIL to pay me $1 million?
Dangerous to whom, Mike? What these kids are doing is physically dangerous. Dangerous to whom? Because
I know for Miami, it's not a sustainable business model.
Okay, but you're coming at this with
Yes.
the bias of protecting the business,
Yeah.
and you're filing
No,
it
no,
under
no.
I'm protecting the kids.
No, I'm not.
Well, you're saying
I'm not
corruptible.
protecting the
You're saying
kids.
impressionable kids. That you're talking about.
I mean, dude, if you knew exactly how, it's like, the old Hollywood cliche about child actors' parents. It's that on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
It's that on steroids.
And I don't think that's to be dismissed. I think that's a very real thing.
I agree that all of that stuff is problematic, and look at how much you're paying these coaches to handle that chaos.
I understand, but
look at the job. If I'm going to pay them that much, they damn well should earn it.
Right, but you have situations now where, let's use all hypotheticals here. Let's say you have a highly touted recruit at 17 years old in a state where you can pay them NIL money as a high schooler. You have paid that kid tens of thousands of dollars. And because that kid's parent gets involved in NIL negotiations, he goes elsewhere. What did you get for your tens of thousands of dollars? You got a 17-year-old giving you the finger and saying, piss off, and you're saying those are the breaks, and I'm saying that's not necessarily sustainable.
You want, as it becomes more professional, you want more drafts, more stuff the NFL has, more control of funds, more control of profit, more control of revenue. You want the business to succeed when I'm telling you, there's so much money in this conference television dollars, the business can't fail.
I just don't want theft, which is, in my opinion, when you say you're going to go somewhere and you've collected money to do so, I think you've encouraged a situation right now where someone takes $30,000 from you, decides to flip their commitment last second, you're out $30,000 and you can't say shit.
I mean, but I mean, there's two parties.
It's the risk.
I know, but there's two parties that are entering that agreement, right? So the person giving the $30,000 knows what they're stepping into.
There's no agreement that you can sign because it's all against the fucking rules. So if someone just decides to seal your $30,000, you can't say anything about it because it's against the rules.
You are trying again and again as all of what we knew of this sport changes.
Just if you're taking
you
money
live
from
in
a place, go
Miami.
there.
All we do is steal money around here.
He just wants Miami to be good.
I understand that he wants Miami to be good. He also doesn't want the business to collapse, and the business needs to sustain itself. Like, I'm interested in how, stugotz, this went from Major League Football to minor league professional football, and I'm floored that fans do not care that their regional identity is so tied up in this that they have dispensed with all of the 100 years of mythologizing. It's like, oh no, we just got a really good minor league team now. We are not even pretending it's amateurism anymore, and the moment it gets close to sniffing the pros, we want controlled costs. We want to make sure that the player doesn't have more power to steal.
All I wanted is to be professional in that if you enter an NIL agreement, there's something that is somewhat binding, at least for, we can go year by year. I just advocated for, if you're awesome, test free agency. Once you're in the door, I am totally fine with it. And God knows there's a ton of tampering going on once you're already with another team. That could be addressed later. It's just, I don't know how people actually report on high school recruiting. Think about your state of mind when you were 17 years old.
I'm not arguing, Mike, that this is not a hugely dangerous thing for kids. I'm not sitting here saying that it is a good idea.
We're finally here, though, at Blue Chips, man. I want suitcases of cash left by a tree.
It's been suitcases of cash. It's just never been enough cash. Now everyone sees how much it costs, and they're like, oh, my God, I'm afraid of the cost.
Right.
We've been stealing all that money for ourselves. Now the kids can steal it, too. We made fun 2 weeks ago of the bowl representative running up $1 million tabs with their bowl money.
But it's not the programs actually paying, though. They still have the greatest spot ever because it's just people.
It's crowdfunding.
It's just real life people doing it. The schools should pay.
Mike, this is what I'm telling you.
That's the injustice here.
Mike, whether it's crypto or college football, if that's where you spend your money, you deserve to lose it.
Chris had a